So today we are on Unit 1, Lesson 7. We are going to add, subtract, and simplify compound fraction. So what is a compound fraction? It's a fraction in which the numerator, denominator, or both are themselves fractional expressions. All right, so our first problem here, we have 2x plus 1 over x divided by 4 minus x over x. So we are going to change this into a multiplication statement. Do you remember how to do that? So to do that, you would rewrite top fraction as is. And second step here, you want to multiply by the denominator's reciprocal. What does that look like? It looks like 2x plus 1 over x, that's the rewriting the top fraction as is, times the reciprocal of the fraction in the denominator. So reciprocal of 4 minus x over x, you just flip it and it becomes x over 4 minus x. Now, we can cross out anything at the top with something at the bottom, something in the numerator with something in the denominator, and so they have to perfectly match. So you got an x over x, cross them out. So we are left there with 2x plus 1 over 4 minus x. So then likewise down here with letter B here, you have a fraction up here in the numerator, so write it down exactly the way it is. Times the reciprocal of what's down the denominator, so that'd be x squared x plus 4 all over x plus 2 to the third. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's just factor everything that we know. That x to the third plus 2 to the third, we know that is the sum of cubes. So how do we figure that one out? If you remember how that one goes, you want to go ahead and a term here is the cube root of this first term here. So you got to find the cube root of x to the third, which is x. And to find the b term, you have to find the cube root of 2 to the third. So 2 to the third is 8, and the third root of 8 there is 2. So let's go ahead and let's write that out. So if you remember how that factors then, it goes a plus b, which in our case is x plus 2. And then it goes a squared, so that's x squared, minus ab, which is minus 2x, plus b squared, which is 2 squared, which is 4. Now go ahead down here in the denominator down here, let's factor that. You can pull the x out. The GCF is an x. What are you left with? X minus 2. Okay. Let's look at this one up here in the numerator there. Factor that one. Looks like a regular general trinomial. What times what gives you x squared? X. What multiplies to give you 4 and adds to give you 4? 2. And then down here, x plus 2 to the third just means that there's 3 x plus 2's. All right. One thing in the numerator can cross out with 1 in the denominator. So x plus 2 can cross out with x plus 2. X plus 2 in the numerator can cross out with an x plus 2 in the denominator. X plus 2 in the numerator can cross out with an x plus 2 in the denominator. Do you see anything else that's left? No. So we're left here with x squared minus 2x plus 4 all over x times x minus 2. All right, so this next one here, we want to go ahead and let's just work with the numerator and let's work with the denominator here. So when we work with the numerator up here, we've got x over y plus 1 over something. We need to get a common denominator up there in the numerator. So to get a common denominator, you look down in the denominator of those two fractions there and you see a y. So y has to be the common denominator. So then I can go ahead and I can simplify that down to x over y plus y over y. And so now that they have a common denominator, I can add the numerators x plus y over y. All right, the other part over here, we've got a 1 minus y over x. What's the common denominator? X. So that becomes x over x minus y over x. So let's combine those, and we get x minus y over the common denominator of x. So we're not finished yet. We have to go ahead now and put it together as a fraction. So we had our numerator up there, which was x plus y over y, and then divided by our denominator, which is x minus y over x. Let's change that into a multiplication statement. So our numerator, x plus y over y, stays as is. Our denominator, flip that, and you get x over x minus y. So now we can multiply them together. So I've got x times x plus y. I just took this nice monomial out here and I placed it out here in front. And the same thing with this next one here. I'm going to take the monomial, which is just the plain y, and I'm going to write the binomial here in just a second. So if you notice there's nothing we can cross out. So that's all the farther we can go with that one. All right, so likewise here, letter B down here, we can work here in the numerator up here. So we got 1 over a plus h minus 1 over a. We need to get a common denominator. What's the common denominator? Remember, you get it by multiplying. So we need a times a plus h. So then I get a over a times a plus h minus 1 times a plus h over a times a plus h. So now we're going to have to distribute this minus 1 through. So put this together. A, distribute the minus 1 through. Minus 1 times a, there is a minus a. Minus 1 times h is a minus h. All over the common denominator of a times a plus h. And then notice what happens here. A minus h is just gone, and we're left with negative h over a times a plus h. All right, but that's not all. Now we have to go ahead and combine. So I've got negative h over a times a plus h, and I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal there of what's down there in the denominator. What's down there in the denominator? H. What's the reciprocal of h? Remember, that's like h over 1. You got to flip it, so it becomes 1 over h. So now is there anything that can cross out? Yes, the plain h's can. So up here we got a negative 1 times 1 is a negative 1 all over a times a plus h. Okay, so now I got 1 over x divided by 1 over y. So let's just go ahead and write the first fraction up there in the numerator by as it is. So 1 over x times the reciprocal of what's down in the denominator, so the reciprocal of that is y over 1. Multiply your numerators, multiply your denominators. Alright, so similarly, up here you got a fraction divided by a fraction. So let's go ahead and write the first fraction as is, multiplied by the reciprocal of the second fraction down there in the denominator. Now let's go ahead and factor everything in the numerator and denominator that we possibly can. Can't do anything about the numerator there. This down here in the denominator, down here, that x squared minus 9 is the difference of squares. So take the square of the first term, which is x. Take the square root of 9, which is 3. X plus 3, x minus 3. And we have to factor the denominator down here as well. What times what gives you x squared? X and x. What multiplies to give you negative 6 and adds to give you negative 1? It'd be a minus 3 and a plus 2. Alright, so now cross out anything in the denominator and the numerator that match. So these are the only two that match. So what are we left with? In the numerator, we're left with x plus 9. In the denominator, notice we've got two x minus 3's. So I'm going to say x minus 3 squared. And then you got a single x plus 3. So on this page here, we're going to skip this first one here. I want you to go ahead and try out number 2. So pause the video and then start it up again. Alright, so here we are. So we're going to go ahead and up there in the numerator, it's not a single fraction yet, so we're going to have to combine the numerator up there as a single fraction, so we're going to have to get a common denominator. What's the common denominator between those? That is going to be x minus y and an x plus y. And so the original one here is 1 over x plus y. So the one that's missing over here is x minus y. So you need one up here too. And then down here in the denominator, if I were to work that one out through too, that would be 1 over x minus y. Maybe I'll write the whole thing out this time. So up there in the numerator, we can go ahead and distribute this 2 through, distribute this 1 through. So we get 2x plus 2y plus 1x, or just x, minus 1y, or just minus y. All the common denominator of x plus y, x minus y, and then the whole thing all over 1 over x minus y. So combining your like terms up there in the numerator, 2x plus 1x gives me a 3x. 2y minus 1y there is a plus y. And I still have a common denominator. And still dividing by 1 over x minus y. Alright, so now I'm going to write my multiplication statement, since this is now a fraction divided by a fraction. So I can leave the first fraction alone, change it into a multiplication statement, flip that fraction down the denominator. Do you see anything that perfectly matches in the numerator than the denominator? Yes, those do. So then what are we left there with? We're left with 3x plus y all over x plus y. And those do not perfectly match, so you cannot cross them out. Alright, so now let's go ahead and let's do some adding and subtracting. If you remember, when we add and subtract, we have to have a common denominator. So notice down here, since I don't have anything here in front, the denominator down there is a 1. So what would be the common denominator? It'd be an x minus 3. Alright, so if I multiply both of those by x minus 3, I can take my 3 and distribute through the x minus 3, and I get a 3x minus 9 plus x, all of the common denominator of x minus 3. Combine my like terms up there in the numerator there. 3x plus 1x is 4x minus 9 all over x minus 3. Alright, letter B here, we also need to have a common denominator. That's x plus 2 and x minus 5. They're totally different. You get a common denominator by using multiplication. So what's missing over here? It's missing an x minus 5. What's missing in your second fraction? It's missing an x plus 2. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's distribute the 8 through. And then let's also distribute the minus 4 through. So doing so, we're going to get an 8x minus 40. Minus 4 times x is a minus 4x. Minus 4 times 2 there is a minus 8. All over x minus 5, x plus 2. Combine your like terms. 8x minus 4x is 4x. Negative 40 minus 40 there is a minus 48. All over x minus 5, x plus 2. And then I always try to completely factor anything I possibly can. So up there in the numerator, I see that there's a GCF of a 4 in there, so I'm going to pull the 4 out. And so 4 times what is 48? It'd be a 12. So our learning target there is I can add, subtract, and simplify compound fractions.